That baby who was born in the manger grew up to be a man who claimed to be God, claimed to be God with us. And Mark Moore in his devotional Quest 52 begins the whole thing with this question: is Jesus God, and is God Jesus? And that's a great question for us to begin with, because there's been lots of people throughout history who have made the claim to be God. Pharaohs of Egypt claimed to be God. Emperors in China claimed to be God. Emperors of Japan had claimed to be God. Emperors of Rome claimed divine status. The priests of the Aztec and the Incas claimed divine, godlike status. Many Hindus have claimed to be God. Kings throughout history have claimed divine status. Even many cult leaders and religious leaders in our most recent history still claim divine status. People like David Koresh, Jim Jones, there's still people today who claim to be God. And many of us would look at a person who says they're God and we write them off as delusional, as crazy. But yet many of these people have a following, and some of them have a very substantial following. But what sets Jesus apart from all these other people? What makes Jesus claim to be God different than all these other people who claimed to be God? Well, one of the things that sets Jesus apart is that for all those other people and all those other cultures, they believed in many gods. So someone who claimed to be God claimed to be one God of many gods. And while being a god in one of those cultures meant you had more power, your power is still limited because you were only God of certain things, a god of a certain segment of nature, maybe the god of fire or the god of fertility or the god of whatever, but maybe you were just the god of a certain group of people, but you weren't the universal God over all things. So to claim to be God was an elevation, but there were still limits to it. But that's not the way it was for Jesus, because Jesus comes along and he doesn't claim to be just one of many gods. He claims to be the one and only God. Jesus claims to be the true God. So Jesus was Jewish, and the Jewish people believed that there is only one God. In fact, this is found in the Shema, the statement of faith, kind of the central statement of faith for Jewish people, found in Deuteronomy chapter 6. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. There is only one God. So they believed in just one God. Jesus would have believed in just one God. And the Jewish picture of God was that the one and only God was powerful, all-knowing, everywhere present, that he was the uncreated creator of everything else, and that by his own power he sustained and maintained everything he created in this universe, that he is alone the creator, that he is without beginning or end, that he is without limits, he's without competition. And this is who Jesus claimed to be. Now some people, might say, well, Jesus never really said, I am God. We're going to look at some of his claims in a moment. And what we find is that in the Jewish culture, Jesus' claims were unmistakable to the Jewish people that he has claimed to be God. And because Jesus appeared to them as a mere man, his unmistakable claims for him to be God were also unforgivable claims, because that's blasphemy, because they didn't believe he was God. In fact, that's eventually why they crucified him. To them, it was blasphemy. In fact, Jesus' friend John, his disciple, shares this in his gospel, that there was once a moment when Jesus healed a man at Bethesda. And he healed the man on the Sabbath. And the religious rule was you couldn't do any work on the Sabbath. And the Jewish religious leaders had taken this so far to say you could not even heal people. Like they had twisted the word to make it more about the law than the law serving the people. And so even to do good, even to heal somebody, to give someone life was work, and you weren't supposed to do that. So Jesus heals this guy on the Sabbath, and then this is what happens. The Jewish leaders began harassing Jesus for breaking the Sabbath rules. But Jesus replied, my Father is always working, and so am I. So the Jewish leaders tried all the harder to find a way to kill him, for he not only broke the Sabbath, he called God his Father, thereby making himself equal with God. It was an unmistakable claim, and that claim was worthy of the death penalty in their culture.